Can everybody hear me? Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for showing up. I know this time is a little difficult for people because it's in the middle of the day. So I appreciate those of you who are here and really make the effort. We have an incredible workshop for you today. This is, as I said in my email, my original email to you guys, we're entering a really important part of the Yale Ciencia Academy, and that's when you really start focusing on your career planning and reflecting upon your career planning. And so one of the tools that you are going to use for that through this program is an individual development plan, or an IDP. And so today we are going to discuss what an IDP is. We're also going to talk about the importance of career planning for you guys and for science trainees. We're going to present, kind of the purpose, the philosophy, and the process behind an IDP, and we're going to have some really great discussions that are going to prepare you for what's going to happen a little bit down the road, which you're going to send us your IDP, and you're going to have individual discussions with either me and Giovanna about your career plans and goals. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our facilitator today. We are very, very fortunate to have Dr. Cynthia Furman with us as our facilitator. She is the Assistant Dean of Career and Professional Development in the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. She is the founder and director of the Center for Biomedical Career Development, which is dedicated to taking a scholarly approach to innovating and evaluating professional development training for scientists. She is one of the co-developers and co-authors of My IDP, which is the individual development plan tool that we share with you and that we ask you to fill. It's not the only individual development plan tool out there, but it's definitely one of the most popular, and we're really, really fortunate to have her who created this tool, or co-created this tool, facilitating this workshop. Cynthia is really a leader, a national leader in thinking about how to improve professional and career development for young scientists. So you are in for a treat. Cynthia, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you for the invitation. I love this program, and it is so much fun to interact with you all in this workshop via an online platform. So let's get started. What we're going to do today is going to be a mixture of, webinar, kind of more lesson, mixed with some interactive group work, where you did some homework, and we'll have you use that homework to apply some of the things we talk about today in the context of your own career and training and your own goals. I want to encourage you, if you are on Twitter, to follow me or to tweet at me. I'd love to see you in the community, and I love to see what trainees, students and postdocs in the community are thinking about their own training. So please do that. Now, there's always a little bit of a glitch in getting the PowerPoint going. Here we go. So in terms of thinking about your training and what you want to do in your professional development as a trainee, what might you be doing to position yourself best for your next professional step? And your next professional step might be additional training, but it might be, something else, leaping directly into something else that you're doing. Either way, you want to use the training time that you have now as strategically as possible. So you're all in PhD programs or postdoctoral training, yeah? How many of you are in PhD programs? Actually, I can't see all of you. Can you give me a rough estimate?
Everyone.
Everyone's in a PhD student.
Yes, yeah, we have a mix of students who are in biomedical, behavioral sciences, psychology, social work, but everybody's in a doctoral program.
That's right. Great. Fantastic. So So you are all at relatively similar stages to one another, so that's great. So your research is going to be the number one thing that you're going to need to focus on in your PhD training. Anyone knows that if you have a PhD, then you should have some productivity in your papers, etc. So you want to be ambitious with that no matter what, and that's your top priority. But we're going to talk about other things today too, and it's important to take some time to think about some of these other elements of your professional development. Things like your writing skills or presentation skills, how you manage your projects, but also time and resources that you work with as a scientist. How you work with others, right? So that might be managing or supervising others. It might just mean being able to work as a good colleague or a good collaborator with others. There's a number of skills that are critical for any career that you move into, and also critical for you to be successful as a student that you will need. Things like being able to navigate difficult conversations effectively, how to set clear expectations or make sure that expectations other people have set are clear to you, and how to negotiate conflict when those types of things happen. And I'll say that these skills, hopefully you've heard from a number of scientists outside of academia that they're critical for their careers. But if you want to become a faculty member, these skills are going to be also extremely important, because actually faculty members are small business owners. Their lab is like a small business. So you need to make decisions right off the bat, not only about how to get funding into your lab and how to manage resources that come into your lab and what projects and vision you have for the lab, but also questions like who you'll be hiring, what type of person do you need on your team or people, how do you make a difficult decision to fire them if it's really not working out, how can you help those people share your vision. So there's a lot of these things are very, very important. And then there are some other additional things you'll need to do specific to whatever career path or career paths you're considering, right? So it's important to have a sense of your long-term career goals and think about any skills or experience that you might need specific to that career path. Or if you need additional mentors who are especially knowledgeable about that career or somewhat knowledgeable about that career that you're targeting and able to have different kinds of mentoring conversations with you that are very career focused. Or do you need, and you probably do, people in your network, right? Do you need to start building relationships with people who are in careers that you're interested in? This is very, very important. Academic careers, often jobs are gotten. You get an interview invite often if someone on the search committee knows your work and admires it. And it can be hard to get out of the stack of applications into that interview otherwise sometimes. So thinking about all of this specifically for your career is important. If you think about all these different things you need to accomplish as a graduate student, it's a little bit scary, right? How can you fit all of this in, moving forward towards your career and your professional development, while also not having that negatively impact your research productivity? And again, the research is the bottom line while you're a trainee, certainly. So an individual development plan is a way for you to think ahead to what you want to achieve. Think about what your strengths and weaknesses are and what your priority goals are to move forward towards. And think of it in terms of your development. So not just the research projects you're working on, but also how you want to develop as a professional towards the direction you want to head. So doing some of this thoughtful thinking allows you to be more strategic and more focused in the goals that you select and how you move forward. So it's important with an IDP, it can help you get started more early in thinking about these things in a more deliberate fashion. It can give you, kind of push you to think about, well, where do I want to end up long term? What types of career paths are a good fit for me? Right? And it can position you well to do the types of thinking you need to do ahead of time so that you can better advocate for yourself, whether that be for time or money to attend a conference, or time to get more teaching experience, or more mentorship in writing grants, right? Or to be introduced to people in companies or other areas where you want to end up longer term. So what is an IDP? You may have heard people talk about them. I want to kind of share with you my definition. So I think of an IDP as simply a plan, a list of goals that are prioritized for you. It's a plan that you make. Your mentors do not make them for you. So you create the IDP yourself, and therefore it has things that are your priorities in it. It may have other people's priorities somewhat represented there too, because there are things you need to work on. I think some people could approach an IDP as really focusing on their development, and you may find that that's a better way to create an IDP. In my mind, I also like to teach that your research goals and your development goals are all wrapped into the IDP, because I really think for a PhD student, it's hard to tease out what are things that I'm doing for my research and what are things that I'm doing for my professional development. often the things you do for your research are entirely integrated to your professional development. Like writing a fellowship application. That's important for your research to get funded, but it's also very important for you to be developing skills in writing and for you to establish some credibility on your CV in that way. And for it to be a development plan, it really should be informed about where you want to end up long term so that you can think about how you are developing in that direction. So you should give some thought into your career plans and keep that career in mind, or a couple careers in mind, as you develop your plan. Now, some of you might be creating IDPs on your own campuses, and different campuses might define them a little bit differently. So that's part of why I kind of wanted to give some of these definitions up front. I should say one more thing. So my philosophy around IDPs, and the reason why we made my IDP, was to empower you to create your own plan. I really think of IDPs as something that you do throughout your career. Right? In fact, a few months into my position as a faculty member here at UMass, when I moved here from UCSF, I created my own IDP. I was more familiar with my position here, what the context of the needs were on our campus, and I had gotten to know my department chair a little bit better. So I thought ahead as to what I thought my goals might be for the next few years to get myself started, and a set of goals for the next year, created my own IDP, and then shared it with my department chair, and that enabled me to make sure that my expectations were correct, and that he was also thinking about me growing in my position now that I was in it. So there's lots of uses for IDPs. Oh, okay. So how do you create an IDP, right? This is not rocket science. I just want to point out some of the steps because we tend to slide by some of them without realizing it. So the first is a reflection piece. It's kind of you maybe sitting down, taking an hour, maybe more if you want, where you go to a library or you go to a meadow or you go somewhere maybe outside the lab without distractions, maybe at home. And you say, right now, I'm not going to worry about the day-to-day things. I'm going to think big picture. Where do I, how are things going so far first? What has my progress been on my projects and on my professional development? What challenges am I facing in my day-to-day work, but also kind of moving forward towards my career paths? What are my strengths in my skills, and what are some areas where I'd like to grow? And what are my long-term career goals? Where do I want to head in a few years from now? And how is that informed by my even longer-term career goals even? And the challenge is that often a common bottleneck is just thinking about the future, right? Not really being sure what you want to do, or having a clear vision and then realizing, I'm not sure if that's quite the right fit. I'd like to have a better sense of what the different options are for me. And so what we did with my IDP was build in steps and resources to help students and postdocs with kind of getting through this initial reflection phase and having more resources at hand to think about what career options might be the right best fit for them. So you do some of this thinking. Oh, and I should have mentioned, a lot of this reflection might involve talking to people. And hopefully today you'll find the exercises we do that it's helpful to talk to people through some of this phase. And so it might not just be sitting down and assessing where you're at and moving forward. You may find for yourself that it's helpful to think, the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be kind of reflecting on where I'm at. And I'm going to jot some things down, and I'm also going to talk to some people about this. And then I'll create a plan for myself moving forward. It's up to you. So then I think it's helpful, now that you've kind of assessed where things are at, write down your goals for the coming year, right? So great. So for this coming year, I want to improve my network. I want to submit a paper. I want to develop my skills in X-ray crystallography. Great. So those are some good goals for the coming year. What I'll show you later is that it's helpful to go beyond kind of these broad goals and get more specific to what some people call SMART goals. And I started to call actually actions. So kind of making an action plan. So you'll see on this document, if you can see it on your screen, I took the broad goals and layered in actions for each one that someone might take to, in their plan to accomplish those goals. Now you're kind of more set to recognize what you need to do and move forward towards those goals. I think it's really helpful then to take those goals, which you have a timeline for, and put them in chronological order. So we kind of asked you to do a little bit of this, I think, for homework in terms of mapping out a plan on a timeline. Doing this, and here you can see that I've labeled months onto the goals and then organized them by semester. You can do it however you want to in a drawn timeline. Here's an example of that, sketched out on a big whiteboard, right? Whatever works well for you for big picture planning like this and to see your plan. But this way you can say, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? My cousin's getting married in March. I'm expecting a baby and I have a grant application due, and I'm also planning to develop my presentation skills. Maybe I should move some of those things around, right? So you can recognize ahead of time where some of the big challenges might be and what control you can take in managing your time. And then the last step is, of course, implementing your plan and remembering that part of your IDP, having one, is that it enables you to recognize when lucky opportunities come up, or it enables you to make deliberate decisions about, I think this goal is actually not that high priority of goal anymore, and I should shift and make this a higher priority. So as you implement your plan, you're going to be revising it. And that's a natural part of the process and a valuable part of the planning process. Right, so this is pretty straightforward. So why do we have a workshop like this, right? Why nationally is there so much conversation about individual development plans for trainees and why they're so important? This seems like kind of a basic thing. And I think the real reason is that a lot of these things are layered with challenges. Some of them because of the academic culture that we are all working in, right? So it can be hard to identify what your long-term career goal. Sometimes, especially when you might have interests that are different from your mentors, and it might be hard to navigate that. It can be hard to identify what your career-related gaps are. That is, what are areas where you really should grow or get more experience and you don't have enough yet. It can be hard to create a plan and decide what action should I be taking for this. It can be hard to have discussions with mentors or know how to balance that. There's a lot of different steps here. Finding a like-minded community can be difficult. Finding people with shared interests who you feel really comfortable talking to about your plans. And hopefully this program is helping to satisfy that a bit for you, right? Giving you an additional new community kind of across the country, right? And supporting you through your career development and planning this year. So today in the workshop, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, I've already talked about how to create an IDP. We're going to get you started now, thinking about your own long-term career goals, how to refine your own plan, how to maximize follow-through on your plan, engage your mentors in it. And I've heard that some of you are starting to talk to your mentors about it already based on the homework, which is great, and how to kind of revise your plan and move it forward. And I'll end with sharing a few resources that you can use in addition to my IDP. So throughout this workshop, I want to encourage you to ask questions. We are on a web platform, but we can certainly make it a little more discussion-oriented at times. And we decided to build in some spaces for you to do that as exercises. So there'll be particular places throughout the workshop where you'll see this gray box come up, which means you're going to do an activity, or we're going to break you out into small groups to discuss things in small groups, and then we'll bring you back to the large group to continue the workshop. So if you have a question, I want to encourage you to raise your hand or type in the chat box, and Giovanna and Monica will be watching those. I won't be able to while I'm doing this. I found from experience it's pretty distracting to see chats come through. In some cases, to mimic a classroom, I may call you by name. Okay, so I can see your faces and your names as you can on your end. So I may try to do that to try to reach out and hear more voices throughout the workshop. So don't be surprised by that as well. Okay. And as small groups come back, I may at times ask your group to report, give an example of some of the things that were discussed in your groups. All right. Giovanna, do you want to say what we're going to do now is we're going to test this. So let me tell you what the exercise is, and then she can give you some instructions for how this breakout system will work on the webinar. So in this little test, we're going to give you 3 minutes. I would ballpark in your group. You'll have 3 people. So ballpark maybe 1 minute per person or so approximately, or just chat with each other, right? But we just wanted to give you a chance also, since you last saw each other at the AAAS meeting, to reconnect, say hi, maybe hear a little bit about how you use that conference or steps you've taken since that conference. It's kind of free time to chat for 3 minutes, and then we'll call you back. So Giovanna, do you want to tell them how this will work?
Yeah, sure. So we have a function on Zoom called breakout rooms. And what will happen is I have divided the group into groups of 3. And when we're ready, we'll, by the magic of the, of the internet and the computer, you'll be separated into groups of 3. And so what you'll see instead of this screen will be 3 of you. You'll see your faces, and you'll be able to talk to each other. So we're going to use these breakout rooms so that you can have intimate discussions with each other about your IDPs and your reflections about professional development. within those groups, we won't be able to hear or see what you're talking about. But if you have any questions or a technical problem, you can reach out to us. There will be a button that will say help, or talk to the moderator. So you can press that, and I'll be able to see it and go in and help you out. We also will be sending you notices when there's time, 2 minutes remaining, 3 minutes remaining, or when we want you to move from one person talking to the other. So keep an eye out for those. It'll help us manage the time while you're in the breakout rooms. And I think that's it. It should work pretty much the same as the system right now, except it'll just be 3 of you. And we'll keep the same 3 person groups throughout the presentation. Is there anything else, Cynthia, that I forgot?
I think just that for this first one right now, we're going to do it for 3 minutes to test the system so you all feel comfortable and you can chat whatever you want about for 3 minutes. We won't give you any time warning. I think you'll get a 30-second warning, and then we'll pull you back into the rest of the group.
Right. When we close the breakout groups, you'll get a 30-second warning, and then you'll be immediately pulled back in. Sometimes people find that a little bit jarring.
Yeah, beware.
All right. Okay, so we're ready. I think I need to add one more person. There we go. All right. And we'll see you in 3 minutes.
All right. Okay, how'd that go? Pretty fun, right? So what we're going to do now is take what you did for homework and get you kind of discussing these elements and thinking through some of the those pieces. So the first step in terms of kind of, we talked about starting with some self-reflection. Where am I at? What are my skills? What are my strengths? What are areas I want to grow in? And what are my long-term career goals? So putting my kind of career development, career office hat on, I worked with many years with the career counselors. I'm a PhD myself, right? But I worked with career counselors for many years and do career counseling. And one of the things very typical in career counseling to help people think about their long-term career goals is to evaluate those in the context of their skills. So, what they're good at, what they enjoy doing, their interests, and what's important to them, or what they find rewarding, or your values. And a lot of people, when they do these exercises in my IDP, they love doing the values and interests in particular, because we're often, as PhDs, asked about our skills, right? We're criticized around our skills all the time, but how often do people ask you what you enjoy doing or what is most important to you? And those are actually really important pieces for your fit in a career in the future. So what you can do is have a career path in mind. I'm hoping to move in this direction for my career. And with that career goal in mind, like becoming a faculty member, let's say, think to yourself, where are my strengths? How do those match with that career path? Do I enjoy doing things related to becoming a faculty? And does it meld well with my values? But also, how do they disconnect? So what are ways in which your skills may not meld well with becoming a faculty member? Maybe you're not very good at writing a grant. Or maybe you really don't like writing grants, even if you're good at it, right? Or maybe your values are not quite in alignment in some ways. Sometimes people say, I'm concerned about becoming faculty because I see research advisors around me all the time who seem to not have the type of work-life balance that I'm hoping to achieve in my own career. So that's an example of a value mismatch. And so with any type of career path, you could choose that one career, envision yourself in that career, and think about how your skills, interests, and values might match or disconnect from that career path. So we built all this into my IDP to help you go through these steps, right? To do your self-assessment, to recognize types of careers available to scientists, to set goals and implement your plan. So in my IDP, there's a whole assessment section that you went into for the homework. There's a couple of things I wanted to point out to you in case you missed them. There's a quick tips tab for every section in my IDP. So you can go there first to quickly see, just skim some instructions, or you could go there if you want to learn more about that next step. Then you can move to the next tab. And in the assessment tabs, for example, you will have already done these assessments, and we designed them with scientists in mind. Though the values self-assessments are ideas that come from the more general career counseling world. for each of the assessments, there's a summary tab. And I just want to encourage you, some of you may have noticed if you pick too many 4s or too many 1s or 5s, for example, you may have gotten a warning. And that's because we encourage you, when you do this, it's really kind of a self-exercise to discern what are your greatest strengths, or what are the things you most enjoy doing. So it's best if you can use a spread of the different scores across the lists of things. Especially for values, you want to really figure out what are the most core values that are most important to you. You'll notice here a little link that people often miss. We should make that more evident. You can print off a PDF version of the skills self-assessment if you want to, for example, give it to your research advisor to get more specific feedback on what they think your strengths or weaknesses might be. So that's a resource that I wanted to point out to you. So what I want you to do now is, on your worksheet that you did for homework, you wrote down 2 different career options that you might pursue, right? I think it's very wise. Things in life happen and change. It's very wise to think about yourself as being great for multiple career options, right? So being well informed about one option that you really, really want, but also think about what other options are out there that you'd probably really like as well, and becoming informed and prepared for that another option or more than one option also. So circle one of those, and we'll use that today for the exercise. So circle one of those and write down right now, I'll give you about 2 minutes, so that's not very much time, but write down ways that your skills, interests, or values may match well with that career path and ways they might disconnect, okay? You can focus on your skills, interests, or values, all 3, whatever you want. Hit your matches and your disconnects. And in a minute, we'll send you into groups to share these things. So write them down so you're prepared. Okay, so now it's time to go into groups to discuss this. And I know we're not giving you very much time for any of these exercises because we want to make sure we can kind of walk you through the process a little bit as a group. So you can do more of this kind of on your own, this kind of evaluation. It's usually something that you might spend quite some time actually thinking through for different career paths. In this exercise though, take the things that you jotted down and share them in your small groups of 3. You'll be in the same groups. We want you to target for about 3 minutes per person, and Giovanna can give you a message or something to point out to you when 3 minutes is up, and so the next person should discuss. And you can comment on each other, but make sure you're hearing what the other person's describing. And so when it's your time to talk in your 3 minutes, share the career path that you circled, that you thought about, and share at least one way it matches with your skills, interests, or values, and one of the disconnects that you identified. And in the 3 minutes, if kind of group members if you want to pose questions to your group members, like, what solutions might I have for this disconnect, go for it, okay? So we will see you back in about 9 minutes.
Okay, everybody, remember to accept the invitation to join your breakout, and we'll see you all in 9 minutes. Okay, they showed all be back.
Great. Okay, so before we move on, I just want to hear a little bit from you guys, just briefly. Does anyone have anything that kind of jumped out to them in this kind of analysis in terms of thinking about your skills, interests, and values, either today or when you did the assessments for homework? It'd be good to hear maybe from 2 people. Make sure you unmute yourself so we can hear you.
So I was just talking to the members of my small group about, I'm really social. I really like to talk a lot. So when I checked the suggestions that the IDP gave me of the possible career paths, I thought that science policy or science communication was going to be in the top, just because I talked so much. And for my surprise, they weren't at the top. It was entrepreneurship in the top, and science policy was over there somewhere in the top as well. So it was interesting just to see my weaknesses and how those weaknesses, if I don't work on them, can influence my future career or my future decision regarding my career, or how my qualities might fit or not my career path for what I want to do. So it was interesting to see that.
Yeah, and I think, so one thing you're referring to is, I can show that now, right? In my IDP, it tries to do some of this fitting for you. And this idea actually came from, us 4 co-authors are scientists or career counselors who work with PhD scientists. And so we designed the website and then we took it to AAAS. And the IT staff at AAAS had this idea to order the career paths based on your fit with your skills and interests. Because they said, well, you guys have been telling us that students and postdocs should be able to use these self-assessments to evaluate careers. So why don't we do this with an algorithm on the website? So the downside with doing that this way, so the upside, the reasoning is that in terms of being responsible, if we're giving the country, and it turns out 140,000 users for my IDP, a list of career paths, and they're ordered in some order that we choose, they said often people don't scroll down to the bottom of a website. So we would be introducing this strange bias to how people view careers in science. So we didn't want to do that. So this at least gives you something in a rough order. Perhaps that's a good match. But we didn't design the skills and interests to assign matches. So I wouldn't put too much weight into the order or certainly the numbers here. I would use it as a kind of an aha moment of kind of like what you expressed, right? Like, I had never thought about these other career paths near here. Or this kind of surprises me. Maybe I should look into it more. So one way you can look at it more to learn more about it is to click on one, like skills, for example, for becoming a principal investigator at a research-intensive institution. And you can see, one of the areas of mismatch for me is that the people who fill this out who are knowledgeable about these career paths felt that it was important for me to have a broad base of knowledge in science, but actually I rated myself pretty low. So maybe that's something I might want to work on. Right, so some of this is not an end-all be-all, and these are broad categories of careers. So again, it's hard for anyone to answer these assessments with the category of careers in mind, but it might be informative and enable you to ask good questions as you learn more about career paths. So thank you for that. Does one more person want to share something that came up for them in this exercise? See, this is where I can call on you all. Christina, how about you? There's a Christina R. There might be more than one Christina.
Yeah, so I was just sharing with my group that one of the things that I want to do is to do clinical research, but I need more, because what I do is basic research, so I need to improve on that. And also we spend most of the time talking about writing, because I guess it's one of the issues that most of us have. Yeah. So I got some few tips from Naomi actually about something about writing 5 minutes each day and just not think about it, just write. So I am definitely gonna try that because I really want to improve my writing. And yeah, that's pretty much one of the most important things that I got from the past small group discussion.
Yeah, great. So that's thank you. So those are 2 examples of skills disconnects, right? So 2 skills, clinical research and writing, that felt like they could be potentially disconnect. And it's a good example of how skills are disconnects that you can work towards and you can improve those skills. So thank you. So I want to share with you, while we're talking about this part, a couple of things more in my IDP. So some of you may want to learn more about careers. It could be hard to do this assessment for yourself if you don't know very much about the career path. So my IDP, we designed to also help you get started with that. In the Read About Careers section, it gives the same list. And if you click over here on the Read More link, for example, you could read about career path you may or may not know very much about, like science writing. And you'll notice we include articles that, there's many articles out there, but at least something to get you started, some book chapters, and then professional societies, which people often overlook. But we as scientists belong to scientific societies, but there's also professional societies for types of careers, right? So it might be valuable to look at their website or even become members or go to a meeting if there's one that you can attend. Even if you do know a lot about a career path, like becoming a faculty member, these types of resources can help you identify what gaps you might have and steps you can take to fill them. So for example, if you want to become a faculty member, there are a number of things out there about how to make the leap from a postdoctoral researcher, for example, to becoming a faculty, and how to pull together your lab, how to do a job search, how to hire people, how to pull together a vision and communicate it. a lot of these types of things so you can get some ideas and start to develop your skills even now while you're a student towards that longer career goal. I know you already learned a lot about communication at AAAS and even networking and had some challenges in terms of building your network. If you want more tools for that, there are some in my IDP, including example correspondence for how to ask for an informational interview, and also example questions you could ask in an informational interview. This includes questions from your values assessment. For whatever values that you rated as a 5, we provide some questions you might want to consider as you go talk to people about different career paths you're interested in. Okay, so that's kind of thinking about your long-term career goals and evaluating that fit. What about a plan for this year? Let's dive into that. That's a really core part of your IDP, clearly, is the plan. So what I asked you to do for homework was to list some broad goals. What are the types of things that you want to accomplish this year for your research, for your skills development, and for your career advancement? And then to take those broad goals and map them onto some time to timeline, right? So if you want to apply for a fellowship, maybe you'd be working on that in the fall, for example. And you can, many of you probably took different approaches to make timelines. That's great. That's where your creativity can come in. And you can type goals into my IDP, but you can also map them out on paper, or I like to get up on a whiteboard and do it. So what we want you to do now is to break you back into groups again and give you a sense for how different people tend to do different types of planning. So we want to give you a little bit of time for each one of you to share your plan with the group, and that should include, right, like holding your plan up in front of the screen so that they can see your plan, if you're fine with that. And that allows people to see different different styles that people have in writing it out, which can give different ideas. And you'll see differences in levels of detail and such in plans. So look for similarities and differences in your plans. Are people in your group aiming to achieve similar types of goals? Did you format your plan in a similar way? Did you have some of the similar challenges in developing your plan? Okay. So here's the instructions for that piece. Basically, we're going to give you about 16 minutes in total to do this. So that gives 4 minutes per person to describe their plan. And again, if you can, show your plan on the screen. And it's probably fastest just to show it on the screen like that. You may be able to share your screen. I'm not sure. If you need to do it electronically, we can find out. But you can at least describe your plan. And then Giovanna will give you the notices, as you saw before, for when your 4 minutes might be up and transition to the next person. In the last 4 minutes, we want you to kind of stop and then have a discussion amongst the 3 of you about what similarities and differences you noticed amongst your plans. And I'll call in a few of you afterwards to represent your group and share with us some of the things you noticed. Okay?
Okay, everybody, we'll see you in 16 minutes. Okay, everybody should be back.
Great. So I'm going to ask a couple of you to share what similarities and differences you noticed in your plans. Carl, I'm going to call out on you. Can you unmute yourself and share some of the things that you noticed in the discussions? What are some ways that your plans and your groups were similar or different?
Hi. Well,
Hi.
Similarities, everybody structured their time frame during like a semester. So, and distinctly, I did like a table, while Rebecca and Antonieta wrote a lot. So that's like the difference, the main difference between our group. And also I reevaluated what we were doing and added how to in my table. So basically that's the main differences, the main similarities.
Great. Okay, thank you. And then Naomi, can you share with us some of the similarities and differences? Were you in Carl's group?
No, I was with Christina R.
Okay.
So we have a big difference because she already have a path that she want to follow. So she has everything by month and it's really good. And I think she's going to be able to do it. And in my case, I don't have it that way because I don't really know what I want to do so far. So, but she gives me some feedbacks and some things that I can do to improve that. So that was good.
Sure. Well, some of your goals might be, figuring out what that path is.
Yes, they are.
Find some ways and steps that you can take to do that. Yeah.
Yes.
That's great. And then Rebecca, are you in a different group? Can you share with us some of the similarities and differences you noticed?
I'm in the same group as Carl.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe I'll see if we can represent a different group. Hang on. Natalie, are you in a different group? Oh, great. Unmute yourself. There you go.
Perfect. So basically, in terms of similarities, mine and Inette's were pretty similar. We are both in second and third years, so we are both trying to find like a thesis project or dissertation. So basically our timelines are pretty similar. On the other hand, Omar, he's completely different. He's about to finish. So his goals are different. He wants to actually graduate, and he wants to defend, and he wants to find a postdoc position. So his goals are completely different. And then the way that we organize things, also very different. Omar, he writes things down in a notebook. Inette, she uses a calendar, which is amazing, an agenda. And I have my amazing table, semester by semester, with all my goals. So we have different ways of organizing things.
Great. Yeah, so there's lots of differences. I want to share too, I think some of the things you guys mentioned was that some people's plans were more detailed and some were a little bit more broad and open-ended, right? Maybe a short list versus a lot of detail. So some of these different differences that you're hearing might depend on what phase we're at in our training. If you are about to finish, like Omar, I think you mentioned, sometimes it's clear, you know, wow, I need to do all these 15 steps in order to graduate and tie up loose knots, etc., and get ready for my next position. So you can really plan and you know what you need to do. Versus if you're in another stage, or especially an early stage of your training or a transition, it might be harder to do that, and that's fine. So there's natural differences. There's also differences in planning styles that might come about just from our own personality, inherent personality differences, right? So some of you might be thinking from this workshop is awesome. I love making plans, and I am going to, you know, dive into my calendar and color code everything, and I'm going to have some awesome lists, and they're going to be categorized, right? And I know part of me gets really excited about those aspects. And others of you might be thinking, this whole workshop concept is stressing me out right now. Can I just do my research? I'll figure things out as they come along. And, you know, just even the thought of making a plan makes me more tense, right? And so some of these are just different natural preferences for how we move forward with things. And so I have advice for both of you with those different types of extremes, I guess, right? Not extremes, but different types of people. And lots of us are in between somewhere is where most of us are. One thing is, if you love to plan, then just be aware that you might find yourself in a situation where you've planned some goals and it's hard to then adapt as your plan needs to change. And so we'll talk about this later, but a really important thing about planning is just recognizing that you will need to change your plan and just make those changes in a deliberate way, right, intentionally. So saying, you know, wow, I haven't been making progress on this goal. Why is that? Is it because my time management's poor? Or is it because, you know, in reality, this other thing really is the higher priority. And maybe I should do this other element of this goal in a different way so I can fit them all in, right? Or maybe my plan wasn't realistic. So just make intentional decisions instead of forgetting about those things or just feeling guilty about not getting them done, right? Others of you, if you don't like planning and just the thought of this is feeling really uncomfortable, one way to approach it and think about it is that taking some time to just reflect and writing some notes down, and your plan might look different, and that's fine. That will open you up to recognizing when a lucky opportunity comes around. So if you take some time now to think through what you need to do for your future career, you might have some conversations with people and realize, oh, I actually need more teaching experience. The experience I have doing outreach efforts with high school students is awesome, and people love that, but they want to see at least one concrete time when I've taught undergraduates in the classroom, whatever it is, right? And so then you might think, oh, that's easy, I'll just get that teaching experience. And you might find out, oh, it's actually hard to find those kind of opportunities. And when one comes around, then you could make the difficult decision of, I need to prioritize this now because this is going to be the perfect fit for me, right? So just doing some planning ahead of time and writing things down helps you be more specific, and it'll position you so that you can kind of take life as it comes because you're more prepared to get those opportunities and harness them. Does that make sense? So I think planning can encompass all of our different personality styles, all of our different realms of where we're at in our training, and that planning will just be a little bit done differently based on where you're at and what you feel comfortable with. And that's all okay. in my mind. So you have this plan, right? And you guys will probably want to refine your plan. And you have very valuable discussions coming up with Monica and Giovanna, where you'll discuss your plan kind of one-on-one with them to get some feedback and think ahead to what you want to do. But once you have a plan, right, what can you do to increase the likelihood that you'll actually take action towards achieving the goals that you want to accomplish, right? So let's say you want to diversify your network. You want to meet more researchers who do clinical research, for example. What will you do to do that? Sometimes that is a really key thing to define. So one way to ensure that you kind of follow through on your goals is to get more specific. Instead of saying, I want to publish a paper, say, what actions will I take to get the paper done? Or I want to expand my network, what actions will I take to expand it? What are some first steps that I can take? And that's less daunting than a broad goal. And it also lays out a path forward so that's easier for you to kind of take those steps. So that's kind of taking your broad goals and laying out actions. And the principle that I want you to keep in mind as you do this is the SMART principle. We often talk about SMART goals, or in this case, I call them actions to remind us it's what you're going to do. So the idea here is being more specific, thinking about something that's measurable. So somebody could actually say, yes, you accomplished that, right? So it's a deliverable at the other end. It's action oriented. So you define an action, what you will actually do. It's realistic in the context of all the other things that you need to do, like your research projects, right? And you've actually set a time frame for when you'll work on the goal. So for example, instead of saying, I'll expand my network, and then a year from now, you say, I still don't know anybody in clinical research. It's probably not a good example because you're meeting lots of researchers. But if you say, in this summer, I will aim to meet, interact with, and follow up with at least 3 different clinical researchers, right? That's more quantitative, it's more specific, it's measurable. So you could say to yourself, did I meet 3 people or not? It's more realistic. You're not suddenly having a wealth of people that you know very, very well. It's just a few, right? And you can go beyond that. But it's also time bound. You define a period of time when you want to do that. So let's look at some examples. So for example, for a project goal, these are some example goals that students might set for projects, like writing a paper, presenting at a conference, getting your research to certain milestones, right? So by April, I want to have purified this protein complex by then. So how would we convert these into actions? Here's an example of what that might look like, right? So to write a paper, maybe I would break it down into these different actions. I'll identify figures, I'll draft materials and methods, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe you'll decide that you'll do each of those in a 2-week span. So it'll take a couple months, and you'll meet with your advisor each time. And it has a star next to that because meeting with your advisor, by telling your advisor, I'd like to meet with you to show and discuss with you the figures, that way your advisor can kind of hold you accountable towards reaching that goal. So by sharing your goals with other people, you can, in that way, ensure that you follow through on them. So let's do that for a career development goal. These are some example career development goals that you might set for yourself, right? Learning more about a career path, expanding your network, volunteering for something, creating a new seminar series, doing an internship or getting teaching experience or some other type of direct experience. So let's take one of those and look at some actions. Right, so if you want to expand your network, or if you want to learn more about industry careers, maybe the actions you might define in your IDP are that you want to read about careers in industry in the month of January. You want to plan to attend 2 career panels between these, right after that, kind of January to March. And you're going to plan to talk to 3 scientists doing informational interviews between now and May, right? So, and then maybe you have a set of friends that also are interested in industry careers, or maybe a group here, right? You can kind of discuss with each other and hold yourselves accountable and say, let's check in with each other. We already have lunch together on Thursdays or meet up. Let's just, for the first 5 minutes, share with each other what we've been learning on careers in industry. And that way you can kind of hold yourself accountable in kind of these peer groups. So whatever you do to kind of think about what actions will I take and how will I hold accountable, you can put those elements into your plan. And that increases the chance that you'll actually follow through on your goals that you want to set. For this, I wanted to kind of walk through with you some examples for creating actions or identifying actions you can take for developing a skill. So skills development is really important. And I think a common one that you brought up was writing skills. Oops. Hang on. So I'm going to try something here. You still see my screen? All right, so let's define this goal as being, I want to improve my writing skills. How about skills writing a grant proposal? Okay, like a fellowship proposal. I want to kind of open it up to you all, and here's some examples from you, and you can unmute yourself and jump in just briefly and then mute yourself again. What are some ways that somebody might build their skills for writing a grant proposal? What are some actions they could take?
In my case, I just took a writing course. I think it would be very helpful. They gave me a lot of tools, like how to start writing, where I should start first, things like that. So
yeah, that's great. Perfect. So take a course in that topic. And many campuses don't have courses like that available, but many do. And there might be some online courses as well. Good. What are other examples?
I read other grant proposals. Sorry.
Okay, so Carolina?
Yeah.
Carolina?
Read other grant proposals.
Read other grant, And who was the other person? I didn't see you.
Me, Grecia.
Okay, what was your idea?
I would say, also in my school, different professors or PI, they have like junior grant sessions where they invite students or they invite professors that have specific knowledge in a specific research area. So they invite students and they have sessions for students or for professors. Also, they motivate the community to make their own, when they are building their grants or they are like having a brainstorming session, they create these sessions and probably you can do your own. You don't have to wait for someone to have their own session. So that exchange of ideas, I think that's very important. I've been like in 2 of them, and probably I don't know what they're talking about at some point because I'm still 2nd year, and most of them have a lot of experience. But it's good to listen and good to know their styles, the way they write, and what's new in the field of research and what NIH and other funding agencies are looking for in a research area.
So that's right. And actually on our campus, we have, here at UMass Medical School, we have a K grant writing group. And now they're starting an R grant writing group. And the group holds each other accountable. They're all working on a K grant. But the great thing about coming together every week or every 2 weeks is they pass around each other's grants. They look at example grants together, which is something that someone brought up, read other grant proposals, and it's facilitated by someone who's good at grant writing. And so that person is kind of coaching that group, and the group is coaching each other, and they're developing their skills while they're writing a proposal, which is a really nice example of intentionally developing your skills while you're doing something within your research. So you're not taking time away from your research, you're making your grant better while you're also improving your skills. How could you, I would want to share that practicing is really important, right? So even applying for a grant is a good way to improve your skills because it builds in, it holds you accountable to actually writing and getting practice, and you might get feedback on your grants, right? So, and in a course, you might have assignments where you do some writing and you might get feedback, yeah? So something I want to share here is that this kind of fits in a framework, right? Basically, you learn strategies, you get practice, or you practice the skill, which is very important, and you get feedback. And so there's different ways to get feedback, but for example, by the way, right, in your peer group, you get feedback from facilitators and peers. You could ask your research advisor for feedback. There's lots of different ways you can do these things. That's nice spelling with strategies, but I'm going to move forward and not worry about that so much. So this is kind of a framework that I've thought about in terms of defining how to develop your skills, because there might not be a course available on your campus. And in a course, they would teach you strategies, they would give you some time to practice, and they'd give you feedback, right? But there's ways that you can structure this yourself. And so there's articles and books out there. You can observe others. You can read their grants and talk to them about the strategies they used in persuasively writing their proposal, right? So think, and as you think about the skills that you need to develop, if there's not an obvious course or other way to learn the skills, this might be helpful, and we can share this slide with you so you kind of have it as a way to think about how to structure more specific actions in your IDP. So what I want you to do now is take about 2 minutes to kind of choose one of your goals that you wrote down and apply the SMART principle to it, right? So define the actions that you would take to make it more specific, more measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-bound. Okay, and you can do this for skills, as we just discussed, or for career development. I'd prefer that you choose one or the other instead of your research goals for this exercise. Don't worry about the 3 minutes per person. We'll do that in a minute. Okay, so I think what we'll do, in the interest of time, is we'll send you to your groups, but only for 4 minutes total. And so in that 4 minutes total, I want you to exchange with each other, just, very briefly, say, tell the goal that you changed or edited, and say your new, more specific actions that you'll take, right? Or give an example of the specific actions you'll take. And 4 minutes in total. So we might even cut it to 3. I'll have to look at the clock and decide. So just do it briefly and move on to the next person. We're not going to give you a reminder to move through people. We'll just pull you back after a couple of minutes so that we can finish out the workshop, okay? But that way you can hear some other examples from each other. And if you want to give each other ideas for actions that you can take during this couple minutes, you can do that too. All right?
Okay, everybody. See you all soon. Bye. Yes, they're all back.
Okay, great. So hopefully that was helpful. I'm not going to have a discussion too much more about SMART goals or hear some of your plans, though I would love to. But since Giovanna and Monica will be talking with you individually, that's a very good opportunity to get more feedback on your plan. Just talk through elements of your plan or strategies for moving it forward or talking with mentors. I wanted to share with you that one part of my IDP, of course, this being a planning tool, is a place where you can type in your goals. And so we've organized my IDP in the setting goals section to have a space where you can type in your skills goals, your career advancement goals, and your project goals. And those categories are rather artificial. You can use them how you want to. But the reason why we have the 3 categories is to remind you that your IDP shouldn't just be your research project goals and ways that you should improve your research skills. I really want you to think about yourself as a professional and how you're moving forward in your own career path. Even if you feel like you're a second-year student, it feels early, right? What types of professional skills or other translatable skills will you need in the future that you can really start building now and use to your advantage now as a student? So So make sure that you do prioritize some career development and professional development goals as you do this. If you happen to type them into my IDP, one of the reasons why we wanted to do this online as an online tool is that then it can store your goals for you, and you can print out a plan at the end of it that organizes your goals into chronological order by month. And so that's something done for you. If you go back and edit a goal, it'll automatically show the new months during which you should be working on that goal. And so I like to print out that part of my plan, the goal part, and put it next to my computer. And that can be a nice opportunity to kind of just, when I'm getting into the weeds of a project and feeling frustration or feeling like I'm losing the bigger picture, I can kind of lean back, look at my IDP and say, you know, this has been really frustrating on this project, but I've got these other things that are going pretty well. Or, you know what, and I'm actually not working on that. That's something that I could make progress on while I'm still struggling with this piece of it. Another question that people have around setting SMART goals is what to do with your research. Sometimes it feels strange. We're scientists, we do research. How can we put our research goals into a plan? Experiments are unpredictable. That's the beauty of science. And that is very true. This is what I would recommend. You're of course doing daily planning for your research. This is bigger picture planning than daily planning, right? So how do you do big picture planning for your research? I would suggest defining milestones. So, you know, if you do need to get to a certain stage to get crystals prepared to collect X-ray crystallographic data, then I'm hoping to have crystals grown by July, right? I've been working on this for 3 months. It's been a real struggle. That's part of what makes this project exciting. But if I don't have it using this new technique by July, I really need to step back and talk to someone outside of my group, if I haven't already, right? Or talk to my research advisor about a completely different approach, or even consider dropping this project entirely. It doesn't need to be that extreme, but at least having these milestones of I anticipated having my research to this place by this point, to this place by this point, having a few milestones for each major research project you're working on will help you kind of get a sense of how long it takes you to do research, have a sense of whether sometimes you're getting too much caught in the details, and that can be very, very valuable. My IDP, because you've entered it in, you can opt in to receive a monthly email around the beginning of the month to remind you of the types of goals that you have coming up and the goals you haven't completed. And if you click that little blue update button on the email, then you can go and click a checkbox in my IDP next to that goal to say that you've completed the goal, which can feel good sometimes. So as I've said before, again, common reactions to this might feel this is clarifying. Now I have a roadmap in front of me, and it might feel very daunting and feel like, how can I ever get this all done? And that's okay. That's perfectly natural, and you'll learn how to do planning under your own, you know, style and a way that works for you. Might as well just get started though and start thinking ahead to what you want to accomplish. So I want to leave you with a few tips for following through. We talked about thinking about how to hold yourself accountable using peers or your research advisor, or maybe leaving Post-its for yourself on every wall as you walk by. I don't know what creative methods you might have to hold yourself accountable to reaching your goals, but that's an important piece. The other thing is you'll notice that we have you writing in this as homework and as exercises here, and in my IDP you type things out. That's not just to store your goals, it's actually that the practice of writing down something really pushes you to be more specific. And so you might think you have a plan in your head, but writing down your goals will push you to think through, what is that goal actually? What do I mean by that? And is that really the thing that I should be working on, or is maybe something else is a higher priority? So that's a very valuable piece to do. Other things is that I like to take my IDP and also put those timelines and deadlines onto my daily calendar, where I keep track of different tasks and have a sense of what I need to do. And the last thing is connecting with your mentors and getting lots of advice from your mentors, and checking back into your IDP every 3 months or so to assess what your progress is. It's a big picture plan, so you don't necessarily need to check on it every week. Just move forward through your plan and check back periodically, so you can make adaptations or just understand where you're at. So let's just, in the last 10 minutes or so, talk about mentors. Mentors are really important for your career development. And, you know, we've talked about creating your plan, and you're doing this as part of this workshop, but you don't actually do career planning in isolation. It's something that your plan should be informed by lots of discussions with people, including discussions with your mentors. And that might include having an IDP discussion, or just preparing a meeting agenda where you want to come up to them and say, you know, I really want to develop my writing skills this year. I'm hoping you can help me strategize how to do that. It's important to remember that your research advisor is not going to be always your core mentor for every element of your development, right? Your research advisor is an important mentor for your research, and your research advisor might be a key career mentor or mentor for writing or other aspects. But also recognize that no mentor can do everything. They have just realistic things like time limitations, but they also have conflicts of interest. Research advisors are going to want you to prioritize your research, at least part of them will, because they need the research to move forward. It's important to have a team of mentors and think about what their different strengths are and use them accordingly. So when you do have conversations with your research advisor or other mentors, I would encourage you to think of it as your meeting. Say ahead of time, I'd like to talk to you about kind of the big picture of where my career is headed, or what do I want to accomplish this year. So they have a sense of, we're not going to be talking about this week's experiments in this meeting, we're going to be talking bigger picture things, and they'll be prepared for that. You should do your homework ahead of time and go through this thought process that we've done today, and then approach them and say, with an agenda and a thought in your head as to what you want to get out of that meeting. Do you want to talk with them about your career goals? Do you want to talk to them about the teaching experience that you need to get? Do you want to ask them if they can introduce you to scientists who are in certain types of companies that you could talk with? If you do need to ask for time away from the lab to do an internship, or if you really want to apply for a grant, even though the lab has lots of funding already, recognize it might be a negotiation conversation. And so therefore, for any negotiation, you should kind of put yourself in their shoes and think about what's most important to them, and how you can help reassure them that you share those goals, and how this goal will fit into that, right? So keep that bigger picture of their concerns in mind with this conversation. We talked about this. I'm gonna show you just a couple of resources, and then we'll have time for questions before we log out, and I can stay on also past the time as well. I talked about My IDP as a resource. There's another IDP tool that came out after My IDP that was based in part by My IDP, which is called Chem IDP for chemistry majors. But if you're in biochemistry, it would be very appropriate too. And really anyone can use any of these plans for the planning tool element of it. It's the career-specific information and the language in the site that might be a little bit different. On our website at career.umassmed.edu, we developed the website with career planning in mind. So we have a section on IDPs that you can use to share with your mentor. We have a section for mentors to describe to faculty what IDPs are. We have the example IDP that I showed in this workshop. And we also have information on career paths. So we took the My IDP categories and boiled them down to 8 categories and gave you additional ideas for steps you can take to learn more about the path, to stay current in the language and current events within that career pathway, and to get deeper training. So feel free to go to our website, and the resources are free there. UCSF has a nice resource for people interested in academic careers. It's called an Academic Career Readiness Assessment that I would encourage you to use to think about all the different aspects of professionalism that faculty search committees might be looking for in candidates. And you can start thinking about those things as important for your own professional development and assess where you think you are at. That might help you with some of this planning. So I see there's some questions, which is great. I'm just going to follow up. I'm assuming those are questions coming through the chat. And then Monica, you can kind of share with me what the questions are. The next steps for you are really to finish refining your goals. You had a little bit of time in the workshop to do that, but I would encourage you to try to get it to be more specific in an action plan and prepare for your meeting with Giovanna or Monica coming up, or other mentors. Identify resources you might need to enact your plan. Do you need time or money to go to a conference? Other resources, access to equipment to get some research done. Consider how you'll hold yourself accountable for things that are really important to you, but maybe not as urgent, especially things not urgent to your research advisor. So you might have to make sure that you follow through on your own. Recognize that if you're falling behind on a goal and not getting it done, just be kind of aware of the reasons why and make a deliberate change in either your behavior or make a more realistic plan and be okay with that. And advocate for yourself, right? Watch for lucky opportunities you can take advantage of and identify multiple mentors, different people who can help you. And then finally, renew your plan every 6 to 12 months. right? Because things change and you can just move it forward from there. It's not a one-time activity. So if you plan this way with an IDP, I'm hoping that there will be many different ways it can benefit you. I think we've seen that with our trainees, and we're starting to collect data here at UMass Medical School to look at some of those things from more of a scholarly perspective. And I really think that this kind of planning can help you think big picture, as well as at the details of what you're doing in your research, as well as your career development. And those things really go hand in hand for all of you. Right, so thanks very much. I'm looking forward to a good discussion now, a few minutes.
Okay, everybody. Most of what's been coming actually through the chat has been, we've been sharing the links to some of the resources you've been mentioning.
Okay.
But if you guys have any questions, we have about 5 minutes left. So if you have specific questions for Cynthia, you can raise your hand, or you can probably just speak up.
Yeah.
So that we can save some time.
How to use Twitter to learn about career paths?
That's a good question.
I'll ask you questions.
No questions?
Yeah, that one about Twitter is a good one, because I'm using Twitter, trying to use it in a professional way. But how to find right opportunities or things that are going to help me to shape career.
Yeah. So I got into Twitter, I think 2 years ago now, and I was really surprised at how helpful it is in terms of your career development. So for example, I see Twitter, for those of you not on it, as being, if you follow somebody, basically their tweets come into your feed. It's like a tailored table of contents for the fields that you're most interested in. So for me, my field is career development and graduate education, and I tend to follow people in those fields, and I unfollow them if they tend to post other things that I'm not interested in, right? As a result, I don't have to check many journals for their table of contents, especially for my field, which is really broad. There's no one set journal for it. But instead, I find out right away about things happening in the field, events happening, conferences, etc. So that I find really, really valuable. And a lot of scientists on our campus are starting to get into Twitter, faculty, right? And finding that they're finding collaborators through connections on Twitter, etc. So that can be very good. I mean, once I follow people and they reply to me and I reply to them, I actually start to get to know people through Twitter. And I have had invitations to go to major organizations in Washington, D.C. to have conversations with vice presidents based on us only connecting on Twitter. For you, in terms of learning about career options, one thing to do, for example, if you want to move into a teaching-focused career, it'd be valuable to know that there's a whole field on the scholarship in teaching and learning. And if you follow the right people on Twitter, you would see the kinds of language that they use when they talk about things, and you would notice, even if you checked it once a month for like 15 minutes, right? You'd see a few of the recent papers that people are tweeting about. You can at a glance see things, click on a couple of things, and then you'll instantly have things to talk about if you meet someone in that field, as well as networking with them on the site. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use Twitter to advance your career. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would add to that I co-sign everything you've said. Like, Twitter is a great professional development tool. Sometimes learning who to follow on Twitter can take a bit of time. Like, you start following people and you see that they retweet or like share something that's interesting, and then you kind of start like following, like seeing where that takes you. So sometimes it may take a little bit. Cynthia, are there any hashtags that people can follow? Or like, I know that some career development programs have handles or accounts. But so if you have any suggestions on like hashtags particularly.
I think the hashtag, though, that you would follow would be different for any specific interest you have, right? Like if clinical research is something you're interested in, that would have its own set of hashtags versus scholarship, teaching, and learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think what you suggested just now is a good one. If you have a career office with a Twitter account, you can use ours. Ours is actually GSBS Career. If you go to mine, CN Furman, I also have it in my little description. So that's you could use that, and then when we retweet things, you can notice those handles and then start following. And it sounds like it might take a while, but it's kind of like PCR. It happens actually pretty quick that it becomes a useful tool by following the right people. You just want to be thinking about your professional presence on it as well, right? So you might want to have a professional account and a personal account and follow different people and tweet yourself differently. You can even just follow people and not tweet at all, which is fine too. Any other questions?
One last question, maybe? Okay, looks like maybe not. Great. Well, thank you so much, Cynthia, for a great workshop, for all of your insight. I thought it was great. So thank you so much again for being with us.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for participating and sharing, particularly in the small groups. We will send you the slides later via email. We'll probably put them in our shared Dropbox and then you share them via email. We can probably also send some of the links that were shared in the chat so that you can have them accessible to you. And then we will see you next time. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Cynthia.
Yeah, no problem. Good luck, everyone.